One American soldier single-handedly held off a German assault during the Battle of the Bulge. His entire crew was killed. After he ran out of ammunition, and after the enemy overran his position, you might think it was a legend. But on December 19, 1944, near the small town of Bulge, Luxembourg, this is exactly what happened. In one of the darkest moments of the war's final winter, Tactical Sergeant Robert E. Gerstung became the only barrier between a German breakthrough and the survival of his entire company. While the Ardennes froze under snow and smoke, and while American forces buckled beneath one of the largest German offensives of World War II, Gerstung stood firm behind a machine gun he refused to let fall silent. The courage he displayed that day remains one of the most astonishing acts ever recorded in the European theater. Moment where one man became an entire wall. By December 19, 1944, Robert E. Gerstung, who had joined the United States Army from his birth city of Chicago, Illinois, was serving as a technical sergeant in Company H, 313th Infantry Regiment, 79th Infantry Division. That month brought a terrifying and unexpected shock. Although the Allies believed Nazi Germany was collapsing, cut off from fuel, short on manpower, its cities in ruins, Hitler launched one final violent gamble. Known as the Ardennes Offensive, it was a massive surprise attack aimed at splitting Allied forces, capturing strategic roads, seizing the port of Antwerp, and forcing a negotiated peace on German terms. It was a desperate gamble, executed with overwhelming force. The offensive hit American lines before dawn on December 16th. The first sign for many American units was not the appearance of tanks or infantry, but the roar of thousands of German artillery guns firing almost simultaneously. Entire sectors of the forest lit up with muzzle flashes. Snow, dirt, trees, and bits of shattered equipment rained from the sky. Radios went dead. Roads clogged instantly. Weather-grounded Allied aircraft and the heavy cloud cover denied patrols a clear view of the enemy movements. Inexperienced American units, many new to the front, were scattered or surrounded before they even knew what was happening. The Ardennes, a region already difficult to navigate in normal conditions, turned hostile. The numbing cold froze weapons and fingers. Icy winds cut through heavy coats. Snow piled up past the knees. Visibility changed minute by minute, shifting from clear winter air to blinding whiteout. Soldiers slipped, slid, and struggled simply to move, let alone fight. And in the middle of this chaos stood Robert E. Gerstung, a machine gun section leader with Company L, 313th Infantry Regiment, 79th Infantry Division. His unit had been ordered to hold defensive positions near Bulge, Luxembourg, thin, exposed terrain that offered little natural protection. The ground was a patchwork of open fields, frozen ditches, scattered farm buildings, and small pockets of trees. There were few trenches, and the frozen soil made digging deeper defenses nearly impossible. Any position that offered a firing angle also exposed the soldiers manning it. Machine gun crews like Gerstung's were expected to anchor the line. Their orders were simple: hold your ground and keep firing. A heavy machine gun could break an enemy charge, pin down advancing infantry, or delay an entire battalion's movement. But that power came with risk. Machine gun nests were priority targets for enemy snipers, mortars, and artillery. Once they opened fire, they revealed themselves. Once revealed, they were hunted relentlessly. At dawn on December 19th, German forces struck Gerstung's sector with overwhelming strength. Artillery shells exploded across the American lines, shaking the earth and coating every soldier in a choking cloud of snow and debris. The bombardment grew so intense that some men could not even hear their own thoughts, just the endless rumble of explosions rolling through the hills. When the barrage finally lifted, storming waves of German infantry appeared through drifting smoke, supported by automatic weapons, mortars, and well-coordinated fire teams. As soon as Gerstung saw dark figures advancing through the haze, he and his crew swung their machine gun into action. The Browning M1917 roared to life, sending a stream of bullets ripping across the snowy field. Gerstung worked the gun's controls, adjusting fire, shifting elevation, cutting down enemy soldiers before they reached the American line. Belt after belt of ammunition fed into the weapon.
The barrel glowed from heat despite the freezing temperatures.
American riflemen nearby repositioned behind him, relying on the machine gun to keep the enemy at bay. German pressure intensified. Mortar rained down dangerously close, sending fragments of steel, ice, and dirt flying into the gun pit. Rifle shots cracked overhead, snapping tree branches. Machine gun bursts from the German side chewed through the snow, showering Gerstung and his men in splinters. Waves of infantry pushed forward, some falling instantly, others pressing on through the barrage of bullets. Then one by one, disaster spread through the crew. The number one gunner, who operated the triggers and controlled the weapon's direction, collapsed instantly after being shot. The assistant gunner reached for more ammunition but was struck down before he could deliver it. Another soldier sprinted forward with ammo boxes to keep the gun alive but was killed by a mortar blast that shook the earth beneath Gerstung's boots. Within minutes, every man assigned to operate that machine gun was dead or critically wounded. And yet the gun kept firing because Gerstung refused to abandon it. He grabbed the weapon, braced it with his shoulders and knees, and worked it entirely alone. The M1917 normally required 2 or 3 men, one to fire, one to feed ammunition, another to carry spare barrels and supplies. Gerstung became all 3. He fired, fed belts into the receiver, cleared jams with numb fingers, replaced the scorching hot barrel, and crawled through the mud and snow-dragging ammunition toward the nest. His hands froze until he could hardly feel the metal. His arms ached from loading belts. His eyes burned from sweat mixing with smoke and snow, but he kept the machine gun alive. For 7 relentless hours, Gerstung continued firing. Shells exploded close enough to shower him with dirt. German infantry attempted to flank his position several times, only to be forced down by his steady fire. American troops gradually fell back under overwhelming pressure, but the withdrawal had to be orderly. A premature retreat meant collapse. That collapse would have opened a gap large enough for German forces to sweep through, tearing apart the American line. Only one thing kept that line intact: Robert E. Gerstung, alone behind a machine gun. His fire broke enemy formations, slowed their advance, and forced German officers to redirect entire squads just to silence him. American commanders realized that their withdrawal depended entirely on this single gunner holding the line long enough for them to reposition. Then came the moment that could have broken anyone. The ammunition ran out. Without ammunition, the machine gun was nothing but cold, heavy metal. Gerstung had a choice: retreat with the others or do something nearly suicidal. He chose the unthinkable. Standing up in full view of German shooters, he ran across open ground with empty ammunition belts in his hands. German machine guns opened fire immediately. Bullets snapped into the snow around him. Mortar crashed nearby, yet Gerstung sprinted through the chaos to the rear, grabbed ammunition boxes, slung them over his shoulders, and ran straight back toward the front lines toward the enemy fire. He repeated this run multiple times, each run an act of pure willpower. Soldiers watching from cover were certain he would be cut down. But each time he reappeared, stumbled into the pit, fed new ammunition, and brought the machine gun back to life. Later that afternoon, the German infantry pushed directly over his position. The machine gun nest was no longer simply under fire, it was behind enemy lines. German soldiers moved past him, around him, closing in from every direction. Even then, Gerstung did not abandon his weapon. Under fire, he lifted the heavy machine gun, grabbed its tripod, and carried both through a battlefield now crawling with German troops. Bullets cracked past him, shouts rang out behind him. Smoke concealed parts of his path, but he kept moving, weaving between frozen shell craters, patches of woods, and broken earth. He fought his way back to American lines, set the machine gun down, planted the tripod, and began firing, again covering the final stages of the U.S. withdrawal and stabilizing the last defensive positions. His actions that day did more than show bravery, they prevented catastrophe. Historians agree that without Gerstung's machine guns slowing the German advance for hours, enemy forces could have broken through the sector entirely. Such a breakthrough could have opened vital roadways, exposed neighboring units to encirclement, and accelerated the German advance deeper into Luxembourg at the height of the Battle of the Bulge. Instead, the line held. The Americans regrouped. Reinforcements arrived, and an entire company survived. When the battlefield finally grew quiet, the snow-covered land near Bulge was littered with shattered trees, frozen craters, broken equipment, and the terrible stillness that follows brutal fighting. The German assault had failed. The American line had endured. And at the center of that endurance was one man who refused to let go of his machine gun, his mission, or his brothers in arms. Technical Sergeant Robert E. Gerstung's heroism on December 19, 1944, is almost unimaginable. A man fighting alone for 7 hours, running repeatedly through enemy fire to retrieve ammunition, carrying a heavy machine gun across hostile ground, and shielding an entire company with nothing but sheer determination, frozen hands, and unbreakable resolve. His extraordinary courage not only became a textbook example of bravery, endurance, and tactical skill, but also changed the outcome of an entire engagement. For this remarkable heroism, he was awarded the Medal of Honor on August 23, 1945, by President Harry S. Truman, a lasting recognition of a soldier whose actions, under the harshest conditions, saved lives and exemplified the highest ideals of military service. Gerstung never fought for glory or medals. He fought to save the men beside him. In the freezing chaos of the Battle of the Bulge, when almost every instinct told him to fall back, he stood his ground and became a human fortress no enemy could break. Robert E. Gerstung survived the war and returned home, carrying the memory of that frozen battlefield for the rest of his life. He passed away on June 17, 1979. But his Medal of Honor legacy and the lives he saved on that brutal day endure forever.